Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on the big city mayors responding to substantial property tax increases in the provincial budget. But first, Labor's Fight Back campaign.
We're demanding better treatment. We're demanding a better quality of life. So it's time to take our province back.
Alberta's largest Labour organization aims to rally opposition, planning a day of protest for May 29th to unite healthcare, education, construction, energy, and public service workers against the actions of the UCP government. And joining us now, Gil McGowan, president of the Alberta Federation of Labour. Hello, Mr. McGowan. Welcome back.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me.
All right. What's driving you to organize this day of protest in 30 seconds or less?
Well, to put it succinctly, we are trying to create a platform for what we think is the silent majority of Albertans who are frustrated, concerned, and even angry with the direction that our province is taking. So I will correct you in one point. It's true that this will be a province-wide day of protest, May 29th. But it's not just for unionized workers. Okay. This is for all Albertans.
You're opening the door.
Yeah, we're opening the door, and for us, you're right. I mean, our frustration started when the government stripped the teachers of their right to strike. But in the conversations that we had after that attack on our democratic rights, it became really clear to us that we're not alone in terms of the frustration and anger that we're feeling with this government. And what we're trying to do is provide a platform for everyone who's concerned about what's happening with the move towards two-tier health care, a government that continues to talk about pulling Alberta out of the Canada Pension Plan and the RCMP against the explicit wishes of Albertans, you know, the people who are mobilizing against coal development in the Rockies, and perhaps especially people who are frustrated and angry with the fact that our government is paving the way for a referendum on separation and more talk about turning Alberta into the 51st state. This is, you know, what we're saying through the Fight Back Now campaign, which we launched last week, is that this is an agenda that Albertans didn't vote for. Even the people who voted UCP didn't vote for, and it's an agenda that we don't support. So not only do we have a government that is doing a whole bunch of things that they don't have a mandate for, they are also ignoring the things that they should be paying attention to, like stagnating wages, like the affordability crisis, like our crumbling public services and the loss of our public health system that's putting our health in jeopardy. So there's a confluence of frustrations, and we want the majority of Albertans who are not currently being heard to be given an opportunity to stand up, fight back, push back, and demand better from their government.
Okay, that's a little more than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, well, but paint a picture of what you're looking to happen on the 29th of May. What should Albertans expect to see?
Yeah, well, what they won't see...
Is that the legislature?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're very clear that what we don't want is to have yet another demonstration in front of an empty legislature building on a Saturday when no one's paying attention. So what we have in mind is a province-wide day of protests, so rallies and marches and other expressions of democratic protest in communities literally across the province. And so this is an invitation. We're providing a platform, but it's not just about us, it's about all of us. You know, right now, it's the separatists and the northern MAGA supporters, they're sucking up all the oxygen on our political stage, but we know that they don't actually speak for all Albertans, and so we want to create a platform in every community across the province for people who have a different view of our province, our place in Canada, the direction that we think we should be going. They have a different view. Let's give them a platform to stand up, speak out, and push back. That's what this is about. Okay. So province-wide day of protest, and I will point out that it's not on the weekend. It's not in front of the legislature. It's a Friday on a work day. And so we're asking people, we'll probably be organizing mostly around the lunch hour, okay. But we'll see where that goes.
You bring up the separatists.
Yeah.
The petition pushing for a referendum on separation. The deadline for that is May 2nd.
Yes.
So the outcome of that petition, how does it play into what you're doing?
Well, we at the Alberta Federation of Labour, we've been talking to our members in both the public and private sector, and in fact, we brought the separatist question to our most recent convention, and representatives from all of our unions voted unanimously that as a labour movement, we have to mobilize against separation. We think that we're better off if Alberta stays in Canada, and it would be a disaster for the economy, for working people. Just look south of the border, because let's be clear, when these folks talk about separatism, it's a way station to us becoming the 51st state. And you look across the border, and it's a dumpster fire. Intolerance, attacks on democracy, attacks on worker rights. Most Albertans want none of that. And so what we're saying is that we're going to, part of what we're doing with the day of protest is to allow Albertans to join the push against separation.
Okay, the Premier's office.
Yeah.
I know you're familiar with this, but the Premier's office has responded and issued a statement that says, first, Gill attempted to launch a general strike and it was a failure. Then he moved on to Plan B, launching recalls against our UCP MLAs. He again failed miserably. Now, Gill is on Plan C, province-wide protest, and just like his previous ploys and his NDP leadership campaign, I expect it to be a colossal failure. That is from the Premier's press secretary, Sam Blecka. So how does that response from government sit with you?
I find that formal statement from the Premier's office both amusing and telling for a couple of reasons. First, if they're so convinced that this is going to be a failure and that and that we're not going to find any success, why are they even bothering to put out a statement?
Well, because media
I would suggest that the Premier does protest too much.
You want to have a balanced conversation.
Yeah, and then also this notion that the conversations we had about a general strike and the work that we supported, it wasn't us leading the charge on the recalls, but we did support the recalls, to characterize those as failures misses the point. And I look at this from the perspective of someone in the labour movement who's done a lot of organizing, especially in workplaces. And as an old organizer, one of the things I learned, one of the most important things, is persistence. You rarely win on the first time out, but you start building a base. And we've done that with the conversations about a general strike, and we actually came very close to having a general strike in this province. I will point out that general strikes are illegal, and so that's one of the reasons, that's the big reason it didn't happen. But it was historic in terms of the fact that we've been talking about it. Similar with the recalls, the government set their thresholds for signatures very high. The recall campaigns didn't reach those thresholds, but they mobilized thousands of volunteers, tens of thousands of signatures. This is a base, both in the labour movement and all those people who are involved in the recall campaigns. I think, when I see the statement like that from the Premier's office, what I'm thinking is, pride comes before the fall. They can swagger, they can pretend that they continue to have support for things like separation and two-tier healthcare and pulling Alberta out of CPP. We know that's not the case. We're going to provide a platform for Albertans to push back against this agenda that no one voted for, people don't support. So they can puff their chests out, and okay. I'll just end with a final quote that has been attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "First they mock us, then they fight us, and then we win." And that's exactly what we intend to do.
Okay, we're out of time. Have to leave it there, Gil. Thanks kindly for coming in.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Take care.
From big city mayors taking issue with education property tax increases to labor groups lining up a province-wide day of protest and Pierre Poilievre's message to conservatives overseas. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, Chris Spearman, former mayor of Lethbridge, and Jim Groom, political scientist, recently retired from Medicine Hat College. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with the mayors of Edmonton and Calgary taking issue with collecting taxes for the province.
That's not municipal responsibility. We shouldn't be collecting provincial taxes for provincial services.
We don't want Calgary to be treated like some would say Alberta is treated by others in the rest of Canada. I get that there's an equalization formula that the UCP government proposes or supports. Transparency about these transfer payments that the provincial government up in Edmonton is asking Calgarians to pay.
As Alberta stares down a $9 billion deficit, the provincial budget signals an increased education levy to account for greater spending in school systems across Alberta, a levy reflected in municipal property taxes. In Edmonton, the average homeowner will pay an extra $150, and in Calgary, the average $340. Chris, I'll start with you. What's to be made of this as a burden on municipalities? How warranted are the complaints of these two big city mayors?
Well, as a former mayor, I certainly support what they're saying. Municipalities have very limited opportunities for revenue collection, and the traditional one has been the municipal tax base, basically property taxation. To see the province taking a larger and larger share of that really is very concerning, and it's a very inequitable tax. It's not at all income or means based. There's no, adding more tax burden to homeowners, property owners, and businesses. Don't forget that businesses pay roughly double the tax, or almost double the tax as municipal homeowners. So this is a very painful and unfair tax, and I would say it's unfair that the province is moving in more and more into an area of traditional municipal revenue collection.
Jim, as early as last fall, Alberta municipalities have passed resolutions at their annual or fall conventions calling on the provincial government to take control of collecting its own education property tax. What would keep the province from doing such?
Well, it's all about optics, I think, in many respects. If they can hide their taxes increases, it's much better for them. This isn't the first year that we've had an increase. It was about 14% across the board at different municipalities last year as well. And one of the major concerns is that, the cities sit down and they, all their councillors focus and they try and keep their rates down. Calgary struggled to get it under 2%. Edmonton had it under 7%. And then all of a sudden the province comes in and raises it 14, 15% on the education taxes, and it makes everything look much more draconian. And they don't really, the councils don't get any say; they just simply have to accept it. And I think this is great for the province. The province in the 23 election, they said there would be no increased taxes without a referendum. And yet this is clearly an increase in taxes, and I don't remember any referendum on tax increases.
Chris, the finance minister has suggested municipalities could communicate more clearly in their tax notices. Insert a line item indicates it's because of the province. How far do you feel that would go to resolving the issue?
Absolutely nowhere. I think when the municipal tax bill arrives in the mail, residents blame the municipality. They don't look at the education tax as being separate and apart, even though it's clearly labeled on the bill. The province has numerous ways to raise money, and of course they get oil revenues, they have income tax, all sorts of other ways of collecting money. It's really unfair that they focus on they're honing in more and more on the municipal property tax.
Jim, maybe one last one on this particular topic, but what do you make of Calgary Mayor Jeremy Farkas drawing reference to equalization and transfer payments? What kind of note does that strike?
Well, Mayor Farkas, of course, is known as a conservative, and for him to throw equalization back at the province is very apropos, because the province is constantly complaining about not having any say and sending all this money to Ottawa, which they don't, by the way. Of course, it's not. The province doesn't send anything to Ottawa. It's all the taxpayers that do that. And so it's really appropriate that he brings in it as an equalization. And he knows, he's a smart guy. He knows exactly what he's doing when he used that terminology, for sure.
All right. Next up for us, we heard from the AFL's Gil McGowan off the top on organizing a province-wide day of protest against the Smith government. It's set for May 29th. Jim, what do you see this accomplishing? How likely is this to strike a note with Albertans?
Well, I think it was a good idea that they're reaching out to everyone. They're not just covering the union folks. As you know, Alberta has the lowest percentage of union workers in the country. And so they have to act as a focal point, but they really need support from across the board to make this work and look at effective. And there's lots of grievances that, as Gil mentioned, a number of them, that we didn't vote for. Polls have shown that we don't support, and yet the UCP is plowing ahead and putting them in because their base wants them that way, including the upcoming referendum with 9 questions and things. It just, it really is necessary to send a message to this government that, we're not happy.
Chris, what do you make of how the government is responding with the Premier's office? We read a statement to Gil McGowan, but and that statement, it takes direct aim at him. Where does that leave the conversation around this planned protest?
I think it's just pure politics. It's, they don't attack the message, they attack the messenger every time. They try to discredit opponents consistently and undermine them. So I think that plays both ways, to be fair. I think reaching out across the province is important and trying to involve others. I think there is going to be a lot of rhetoric, and people have to put that rhetoric to the side and focus on the issues.
All right. Time for us to take a bit of a break, but when we come back, Pierre Poilievre's first international trip since becoming leader of the opposition. More from our politics panel in a moment. Welcome back. Pierre Poilievre headed to Berlin today, the latest stop on a current European tour. And in delivering a speech in the UK on Tuesday, he proposed a new trade partnership to strengthen ties.
When the treaties and agreements that allow us to trade freely face upheaval, we need to double down and deepen our ties with our oldest and most trusted friends. Instead of shrinking markets behind tariffs, we should expand opportunities among friends. That is why I believe the time has come for a partnership between Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, and New Zealand, a modern CANZUK.
It is Poilievre's first international trip since becoming leader of the official opposition. Tuesday's comments made while delivering a 30-minute speech to a center-right think tank that touched on the history of capitalism and the benefits of free trade. Chris, in the UK, he was addressing an audience of conservatives, a very friendly audience, and was well received. What's your takeaway from Pierre Poilievre's messaging?
Well, he's trying to broadcast back to Canada that he is capable of leading on the world stage, has friends in other countries. He has to change his image. This was his first overseas trip since he became leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. So it's been, I think, trying to change the style, trying to have more appeal, and we'll see if he can actually do that. I think Canadians are frustrated with Pierre Poilievre, the constant attack dog style. They're looking for more leadership and more statesmanship, I guess, in a future prime minister.
Jim, what do you make of this as maybe a follow-up to last week's address to the Economic Club of Canada in Toronto, where he took aim at Donald Trump? He laid out his vision for handling tensions with the U.S.
Well, he's competing against his own membership there, too, because Mr. Giovanni, of course, has an in with the Vice President, Vance, and also met the Prime Minister, or the President, when he went to the States. And Poilievre was caught with a bit of egg on his face where he'd been upstaged by one of his own MPs. And now he has to remember that the polls are suggesting that Carney looks better as a Prime Minister than he does, even though the two parties, the Conservatives and the Liberals, are sort of neck and neck. his leadership qualities as a prime minister or a potential prime minister don't track very well. So he has to regain the international image that, as Chris suggests, he has to look more prime ministerial and more diplomatic, if you like, because the attack dog thing doesn't always work when you're looking for a prime minister. You're looking for someone who has got diplomatic skills, contacts. Carney has been to 21 states since he was elected as the Liberal leader and became prime minister, and he has all those doors open for him, and it does suggest that he can have some success with increasing our trade around the world, which is what they ran on in the last election, and I think he's trying to fulfill that.
Chris, with that in mind, how do you see Poilievre's approach to this European tour comparing to that of the Prime Minister, especially considering Mark Carney currently off on a trade mission, his latest, in Australia today?
Well, I think the criticisms are muted. His supporters are actually more critical and more supportive of Pierre Poilievre and more critical of Mark Carney. But Pierre Poilievre himself is presenting ideas in a straightforward way without specifically criticizing Mark Carney. And I think that's a good change in tone for him.
Jim, how much of Pierre Poilievre's European tour is meant to actually connect with an audience back here at home?
Oh, 100%. Until you're actually the prime minister, your contacts abroad are really symbolic more than anything else. If you're literally a prime minister in waiting, that all the signs are that you're going to be the next guy up, as it was before the last election for him, then that makes a difference. People will open doors for you and be more respectful on the government side. But when you're simply leader of the opposition and it's only a year in from the last election, really it's sending the message back home. That's its whole impact. We know he had enormous support in the convention, the Conservative Convention in Calgary, but he doesn't have that same support in the broad base of Canada. In fact, it's the nature that appeals to the Conservative base that seems to not appeal to the general population of Canada. That's what he's got to overcome.
Chris, last question to you. Pierre Poilievre, now in Berlin. He'll spend the next several days meeting with officials, business leaders there. Is it just a matter of making an appearance overseas, or does he need to bring something back to be in a position to declare it a success?
No, I think he just needs to take those first steps and meet with officials. I think it's important to note that he's not actually meeting with the leaders of these countries. He's meeting with business groups and conservative supporters in other countries. It's a very friendly audience, but it's not having any real impact.
All right. Gentlemen, we're out of time. Have to leave it there. Great to see you both. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Chris.
I got 2 in.
Harvey and Macklin make a great team on and off the green.
I like to spend time with my brother. I really like my brother because he helps me do stuff.
Born in 2015, Macklin's quiet at first, but once he's comfortable, he loves to share his world. These days, it's all about airplanes and reading.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I like to read 10 out of 10, and my favorite book is SOS Titanic.
Born in 2017, Harvey is creative and loves keeping busy.
My favorite thing is to play with Lego, play outside, and do arts and crafts.
These precious brothers deserve to grow up together. A forever family would be a hole-in-one for Harvey and Macklin. For more information, go online to alberta.ca/Wednesdays-Child.
Proudly supported by CTV.
Now, here are a few responses to a recent story posted by CTV News about the province defending its decision to create a new healthcare corporation to centralize corporate services between its health agencies. Lorraine says this was supposed to have been done in the 90s. I guess it's a cycle, centralize, decentralize. Omar writes, I thought Conservatives were against bureaucracy. Tracy says, how many doctors and nurses could that $2 billion hire? Valerie writes, taking NHS, ripping it apart and putting in 5 times the administration. How does that save money? Andy thinks she's a good talker, but the actions are bad for Alberta. Have your say. Email us anytime at comments@albertaprimetime.com. While the Premier says her government won't be adopting a PST, she has opened the door to a citizen initiative for a referendum on one. So we will talk taxation with the economist Trevor Tombe on Thursday. Until then, have a great evening, everyone, from all of us at Alberta Primetime. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time.